Dear Louis, I was reading recently about research that indicated how ultra highly processed foods affect the brain as well as the body. I'm curious, how much would this affect children in schools? As particularly in America, as much of the food served at daily meals is ultra highly processed, like pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, things like that. There's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and yes, indeed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and scientifically proven as well, that ultra highly processed foods are very, very toxic to children. Not only that they pollute the organs and the organ systems, and can create, at young ages, you don't see it so much right away, though sometimes you can. The more immediate effects, you see obesity, lethargy, tiredness, confusion, disorientation, lack of focus, lack of attention, which can often be mistaken for ADD, which itself, I've covered that many times before. That itself is often misappropriated, misdiagnosed. But a lot of these effects that toxic and ultra highly processed foods do to children create a lot of the same symptoms they describe in ADHD. So depression, those are some of the more immediate ones. And then of course long-term, like with adults too, they can lead to disease and the breakdown of our organs, functions, and our organs function and our organ systems functions. The respiratory system, the digestive system, the circulatory system, etc. So very, very sad in that regard, and that's something that really, really needs to change. I know there have been some inroads made, and that's wonderful. It's not changing fast enough, but we have to hold that vision for more and more education and information and change. It actually doesn't cost a whole lot of money to give children at schools proper food, because ultra-processed food costs money too. Think of all the packaging and the chemicals and the processing and the plants, factories, where all that has to be done. The argument that it saves money is pretty much a lie. So it's just, there needs to be more education and illumination and information and a level of caring where the parents, if need be, have to have a louder voice and have a louder say, because ultimately the parents and the students are in charge. I know they don't think they are, but that's only because they haven't taken the reins. They actually do wield the power. And I've shared other instances in this, how that can be so, and here's a classic example. Whereas if enough parents, put their foot down, they can implement the change that's needed in the schools. Think of like if enough people stood up and made a scene and took a stand and said, the numbers got large enough, and they just said, we're going to withhold our children from the school unless you feed them properly. What are they going to do? Of course, they're going to have to bow to your demand. Whereas one parent filing a complaint, it might not ever even be seen. And this principle is true in a lot of society. It's, yes, systems and governments and institutions have gone astray and have become corrupt, and it's just been getting darker and darker. But part of the problem is that there hasn't been enough of a grassroots movement for people to, I can't stand using this phrase, but it keeps coming to my head, taking the power back. Here's an example where it actually is appropriate. People do have the say, the same way they have a say in an election. If everyone sits there yelling at their TV and swearing at the different candidates and realizing that, spend all that time convincing your friends to go vote and vote for what you want. The vote counts, I have some friends in other countries where it's actually a crime, a punishable crime if you don't vote. And those countries have 95 to 100% voter turnout of the citizenship. Imagine that, if the U.S. doesn't see stuff like that. I think the last time we had a turnout that was somewhere in that category was when Ross Perot ran as an independent. I think that year was really, I don't remember the percentage, but it was one of the highest turnouts ever in history. But imagine if it was law, if it was a crime not to, a punishable crime. So that's, an example. There's tremendous power in the vote. And for people to not vote and just, point fingers and judge, well, you're kind of part of the problem. And the same thing with the schools. If people, don't put their foot down and take a stand, it's one of those things that a handful of parents don't have enough clout to do it. These systems and institutions are too big. Same with government. Same with a lot of things in community. If the numbers get large enough, I should say when the numbers get large enough, their voice will be heard and implemented. So this is ultimately probably where it's going to end up. I mean, thank you for your question, and I'll keep praying and doing what I can to to get people engaged.